Well, it's me, Chucky, and Jigsaw in the house.
It's your boy Jiggy.
Yeah. And we just watched Mahakaal, or in some places, I guess it's known as The Monster. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, just to start off with, I guess we should just tell you a little bit about what this movie is. And what better way to do that than to just steal completely from IMDb, because this movie is all about stealing. So, a demon torments the family and friends of Anita in order to take revenge on his death, which was caused by her police officer father. And it doesn't really mention that in the description. It just says a demon torments the family and friends, but really what they're saying is there's this guy with a severely messed up face who wears a glove with razor fingers and stalks people in their dreams. And if that sounds familiar to you, well, it should, because this movie pretty much rips off as much as it can from A Nightmare on Elm Street. In terms of just basically is the movie any good or not, I guess that comes down to how much you enjoy, a number of different things, I guess. How much you enjoy horror movies, how much you enjoy foreign cinema, and how much blatant thievery affects your opinion of a movie. Because there's a lot in this movie that you can say, hey, A Nightmare on Elm Street did that. And it gets to a point where you almost can expect what's going to happen in the next scene. Well, actually, I take that back, because there are some new additions to the formula here which may surprise some people. But anyways, before we get into that, what were your general thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so this is a movie that I've seen quite a few times now. This may be either my third or fourth time watching it. I've never found it an amazing movie, but I do consistently find it quite an interesting one. One thing that comes to mind, as far as flaws are concerned, the movie, at least when I watched it, is 2 hours and 12 minutes long, and if you actually want to round up, it's 2 hours and 13 minutes long. Now that's not uncommon for Indian cinema, but it does feel like it's dragging here and there, especially once you have to sit through the musical segments. And if you're not familiar with Indian cinema, they do enjoy the musicals. So there's, I think, 3 songs in this movie. The unfortunate thing being none of the 3 are particularly, none of the 3 are particularly good, and another problem, none of the 3 are particularly relevant. So, like, you can take the...
Well, I mean, surely it's relevant, singing about how you want to go for a picnic.
See, the funny thing is that might be the most relevant, because at least it gives them a reason why they were out there and the car broke down and hey, they have to stop at this hotel. So at least it may have been relevant in that way. But it was. I mean, I enjoy Indian cinema. At least, let me rephrase. I've seen a few Indian movies I legitimately enjoy. I don't mind music in my movies. I also enjoy quite a few musicals, but I've never seen such underwhelming music in a movie before. And this one it actually sort of reminds me of a movie we talked about a little while back, Stage Fright, from I think it was 2014. And I remember that having, at least in my view, quite underwhelming music too. I think it's a bit worse in this case, one, because the movie's quite a bit longer, and two, I sort of come to expect more from Indian cinema. That said, I actually, while I don't love the movie, I do find the additions, the new stuff in this movie to be quite welcomed. Now, like Chucky said, there's a lot of elements that are sort of taken from A Nightmare on Elm Street. they pretty much follow most of the first movie, and they throw in elements of the second, third, and fourth movie. For instance, there's like a what about scene,
Wet
which
dream.
in
Yeah.
indeed, which happened in the fourth movie, and there's a scene in which they have to go dig up the corpse of the monster, which I believe the name is Shakal. Is the name of it's the Indian Friday apparently. Shakal. There's a scene where they have to go dig up his grave, which is sort of reminiscent of something that happened in the third movie. Actually, one of the most random things was I think this was some in the second half. One of the characters is having like a fight with the Invisible Friday, which reminded me of like the Kung Fu Invisible Friday fight from I think it was the fourth movie, Dream Master. So that was sort of funny. So there's a lot of things that they just take from the American series, but they do throw in a few new things. One of them being, in my opinion, somewhat creepy and effective, clad glove coming out of either the floor or the walls. Happens a couple of times throughout the movie. I think it's creepy every time. And they do throw in it's a short but sweet aquarium sequence toward the second half of the movie. And aquariums do not pop up that often in horror movies, so it's always nice to see, even though it may not be used to great effect, it's nice to see that setting.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of the horror aspects of this movie, I think it's actually pretty entertaining. The Shakal, the monster, he does have like a creepy vibe to him, and I don't know if that's entirely because it doesn't really speak like Freddy does. Freddy's a wisecracking type of character, whereas this guy just kind of mostly just laughs or giggles, or I don't know, whatever you want to call it. And the rest of it is just kind of staring weirdly at you, sometimes with awkward close-ups. But yeah, the horror scenes, the attack scenes, the kills, it's not like overly violent for, like, I guess you could say the movie looks more violent than it actually ends up being. There's a lot of scary imagery, but not necessarily the most bloodiest of kills. At least in comparison to, typical American horror movies. I mean, a Nightmare on Elm Street, what's one of the first kills you get to? There's multiple kills in the original Nightmare on Elm Street where it just looks like buckets of blood are involved. So, and that's not really the case here. But yeah, they come up with some. Well, I hate to say they come up with it, because really they tend to use a lot of stuff from other movies, but the scenes in this movie, whether it's just 20 different Freddy gloves coming up out of the ground and attacking someone, or whatever they do, it's usually at least entertaining, to say the least. And I didn't really have too much of a problem with. I mean, me personally, I've never been one to hate a movie just because it stole things. At the end of the day, it's, did I enjoy the movie? And to be honest, for this one, I actually kind of did. I whether it was the horror scenes or even these silly singing and dancing moments, I was just kind of sitting there dumbfounded, like, what the fuck am I just watching? And as they sing and dance, I almost want to get up, but I have a fear of splitting my pants. That's a rhyme, yo. I actually didn't come up with that, at least not the rhyme that just naturally happened. But
yeah, because you do have that natural talent.
Yeah, so in any case, I did find the movie enjoyable, mostly for all the wrong reasons, I guess you could say, but at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. Did you have a good time or did you not? And I think for this one, I did.
Yeah, one thing I thought was sort of interesting, And this may or may not have been intentional. I'm not really sure. I'm suspecting maybe it was. But during this scene that sort of mimics the American movies, you know, the Nancy character seeing the body bag, Tina in the body bag. Of course, this movie it's Amita, and I forget what the other character's name would have been. But so she follows her down to this like it looks like it is frozen, this like giant blocks of ice around her. And when she finally confronts, her dad, Fran, the Fran starts like doing this high pitched giggling, which instantly reminded me of the evil dad. And like it has the exact same sound, and I'm sort of wondering if that was perhaps another thing they borrowed for this movie, because it just seemed like it just might be.
Yeah, potentially. And I guess it's kind of funny because as I was mentioning before this discussion, I actually do work with quite a number of different Indian people. So I'm not sure if they've seen this movie. It's something I'm going to ask them. But I did notice throughout the movie just certain ways that they speak. Like I saw in one particular scene, someone said they would do the needful, which is like, no, that's not something that you would typically hear anyone say, but I noticed that is like a phrase, something they tend to use a lot over there, and it's just I don't know, it's just kind of amusing to, because when you talk to someone and you pick up on those types of things, you're like, that's kind of odd that they say it that way instead of this way, and then you see that, okay, well, that's just how it is. So,
and actually, that reminds me of another thing. So, the songs in this movie, like I said, are pretty underwhelming. I actually think that one of the bigger issues, and this isn't even like a large issue because this character doesn't appear that often, but there's a character who's named Canteen, and he's sort of like, he's like a big Michael Jackson fan. He dresses up like Michael Jackson. He has like and this is of course late 80s Michael Jackson, not the one that people might be familiar with nowadays. He dresses like him. He has the same hairstyle. He does some dance moves, and he's the comic relief character for the movie. And like I said, we don't see him that often, but we do see him way too much. So, I personally could have done without that.
Well, he plays like a number of different characters in this, doesn't he? Like,
yeah,
he's got like some duplicate at some point, and that was just weird.
Yeah, I didn't get it. I guess it's maybe humor that I may not be privy to, or maybe it's just humor that's not funny. But I think throughout the movie he meets like these two people who are supposed to be like different, I guess, like brother and last from the same father or something. I don't know. It just seems strange, and more to the point, it didn't really have any relevance to the actual story here.
I actually did start cracking up when they went to that hotel or whatever, and that manager guy was going on about, "Are you my duplicate?" and stuff. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy on?
Yeah. No, that guy. No, he may have been one of the more over the top guys, and he was sort of amusing, like his eyes and just the way he was looking at them. And see, I don't know if I might just stay in my vehicle if that was the only choice for hotel. So,
when you watched this movie, did it include the interval, or where it pops up saying interval? Or maybe it didn't, because it doesn't sound like you're familiar with what I'm talking about.
Yeah, unless I'm missing something, I'm going to say it did not.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll show it in one of the video reviews, but there is a part, I think it's around the time they discover the dad with the glove, and what he did. Somewhere around there, just over the halfway point, there's this interval text that pops up, which I guess is something that used to happen sometimes at theaters. If it's a long movie, they'll give you an interval. You can go stretch your legs, go get a drink or whatever.
Yeah, and I think at least in the US, so before these intermissions.
The intermissions, yeah. Same thing. I remember an Australian movie, Blood Moon, had a very similar thing, and they had a little more to theirs, though. It was something like, here's your chance to, like, if the movie's too scary for you, we'll allow for you to, get up and go get a refund and leave. Unfortunately, a lot of people actually did get up and leave, not because it was too scary, but because they thought the movie was shit. So, it was a good prompt for those people to, oh yeah, I better go get my refund. Admittedly, some things did start happening after that point, which improved the movie a little bit, but overall, I think it was still had a lot of problems. But in any case, intervals, intermissions, I guess they're not common, but I guess back, it's just one of those quirky little things that I noticed pop up.
Quick aside, one of my favorite comedy movies, because I'm somewhat old school, is It's a Mad, 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 Mad World from 1963. It has a fantastic cast. It's quite a lengthy movie. There's a lot of different versions out there. The one I see most is like around 3 hours or so. And halfway through that they have like a 5-minute intermission, just so I'm assuming at the time theater goers can go get some more concessions, use the restroom, whatever they have to do. And I can imagine for a lot of longer movies, like we said, this movie Mahakaal in 2 hours and 15 minutes or so. I imagine it would be quite useful when a movie reaches this type of length. Maybe some of these newer movies that are coming out that might reach the same time, to consider bringing it back. Because it's fun. You can play a little music in the background, just have a jolly old time. So it's good stuff.
Mm.
Yeah, and I was going to say one more thing I actually enjoyed about Mahakaal. So they give us sort of like an origin story about this demon guy, and like Chucky said, oh God, what's her name? The main character, her father was responsible for the guy's death, and it's sort of similar to the version that 1984's Nightmare on Elm Street. Only here, this guy actually abducted another one of the police captain's daughters, and he actually sacrificed her. So this guy would abduct children, sacrifice them to gain more mystical dark power. And he actually threw this daughter down like this giant pit in front of the father, which of course prompted the father to react unhappily. So that's something that's a bit new to this, and that is one addition I quite enjoyed, even though it's not really focused on that much. But the fact that this guy actually killed one of the guy's daughters, some good stuff.
I did notice, as we mentioned earlier, there is some singing and dancing in this. I did notice that tended to fade away as the movie progressed. So there was quite a lot of it early on, but I mean, there is still some of it later on, but it just feels like it thins out a little bit over time, which I guess is good if, you're not really into that stuff. If you can make it past those first few songs, you're probably good to make it through the rest of the movie, as long as you can still put up with the long run time as well, because, this movie is longer than it needs to be, and I think if I had one gripe about the movie, that's probably it, is that it doesn't really need to be anywhere near as long as it is.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite Indian movies is this. It's a little known Indian romantic comedy from, I think it's 2011. And this I don't know, 5, 6, 7 songs strewn throughout the movie. And I mean, not only are the songs badly constructed, they're actually plot relevant. They actually show progression in the story. Whereas, like I said, there's only a couple of songs here, but they're just not important. And I think that's a key. If they could have written some other songs in the movie that actually did something, they showed something, instead of people just sort of dancing and smiling and talking about picnics, then maybe it would have worked better. So I am quite happy that they, I guess, at least limited themselves to just 3 songs. So we don't have to spend too much time. Though, I sort of wish maybe they would have been a bit more creative with it.
And another thing that they did do quite often early in the movie and then kind of faded out with again is just quite a lot of slapping. There's people getting slapped all over the place in the first, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes. At least 3 or 4 slaps. But, yeah, didn't really get too much of that moving forward, which is unfortunate because I enjoy a good slap scene. I mean, I'm no Sean Connery or anything, but I mean, one of the most underappreciated slaps of all time from Carrie when John Travolta does that little slap in the car. Whoosh, told you not to call me that. Yeah, I don't know. If I can get some good slap scenes like that, yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be men slapping women. It could be women slapping men. It could be men slapping men. Women slapping women. I don't care. It's just the art of the slap is, there's something to that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I have nothing to add to that.
Yeah. And, well, I guess one last thing, or actually 2. Let's talk about 2 other things. One is the music in the movie. So as we all know, outside of the singing and dancing, this movie does share some very similar theme music. So when I saw the credits at the beginning of the movie, there was some guy who got credited for the music, and I'm not sure if that's for composing the theme music or is it for the arranging the songs and dancing. I don't know, but I was thinking after hearing the theme, like, oh, you got a lot of balls to give yourself credit for this. There's someone to give this guy credit for this. It might not be exactly the same, but it's so similar that, I mean, if you've seen A Nightmare on Elm Street, you know.
Yeah, I'm. To be honest, I'm not. Well, I'm not some legal scholar. I'm not sure how these. I think this movie is made by the Ramsay brothers. It's a very popular family as far as Indian cinema goes. Especially Indian horror movies go in the 70s and 80s. I'm surprised they could legally even make this movie. And I'm not sure if it's just a case of, oh, nobody knows about it, so it's fine. I just don't know how that happens. I highly doubt they got permission or rights for any of this. And I'm okay with it because, like I said, this movie has some unique elements in it. And more to the point, if you are a fan of A Nightmare on Elm Street, I definitely recommend you check this out at least once in your life. But it just, the whole legality behind it always struck me as somewhat interesting.
Well, they do play a Michael Jackson song in the movie, so the sheer fact that that song is even in the movie says to me that they didn't need to worry about anything else if they were able to get away with just that one thing. So yeah, they're probably just like, you got to cross international waters to come at us, bruh.
Yeah, like I said, I'm okay with it because it gives a unique twist on something that you think is familiar. So, hey, I guess more power to them.
Yeah. And the other thing that I wanted to quickly highlight was, and I think internet culture has kind of made this more of a thing. Is the thirsty Indian men looking for their bobs and vagine. There is quite a bit of that in this movie. And one guy is just, throughout the movie, he's pining over this one girl. And even in class, the cameraman's doing some nifty, like, zooming in on, well, I guess it's like zooming in on the breast area of this woman, but I mean, there's nothing really to see. She's still fully clothed. So but he's just kind of daydreaming, staring at a chest. So, um, you know, an Indian movie, I guess, wouldn't be complete without some thirsty men looking for some action.
He does have a pretty good pickup line too about, oh, I don't need to respect you, I just want your body. So I guess if you're looking for love out there, men, there you go. There's something you would not want to say.
Yeah. Anywho, all in all, this is a movie that just steals pretty much everything it can from a very popular horror franchise, which we all know as The Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah, it has a few things in it. Mostly, I guess, to give it that authentic Indian flavor. But, I actually had a pretty decent time with the movie. I enjoyed it for the most part. Like I said, the long run time is the only thing that really has any significant impact on the movie for me, just because I do feel there are a few scenes that just weren't needed, can be cut out. You could reduce this thing well below 2 hours. And just all that extra stuff, sometimes you're like, okay, just move it along, please. Get to the next scene that has Mahakaal or whatever you want to call him. So, because he's still, the main parts of the movie that you're looking out for. But yeah, other than that, yeah, I had a pretty fun time with it.
Yeah, in much the same vein, like I said, I've seen this movie maybe 3 or 4 times now. It's a decent movie. It's definitely over long. I wish they had found some ways to cut it a bit. It's still entertaining, especially if you are a fan of and not only just a fan, but of the first movie, but the Nightmare on Elm Street series, because like I said, it takes bits and pieces from the first 4 movies. So, maybe if you've not seen any of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, a lot of this will seem more original. But, it's an okay movie. It's not great. Well, like I said, I recommend that if you are a fan of the Nightmare on Elm Street series, to just give it a look, just because it's so unique. And I just have a feeling that even now, even though this movie came out 25 years, I don't do math. I'm just going to say it came out a while ago, 1994. I just have a feeling it's not a particularly well-known movie, which is a shame, because even if it isn't great, it at least still has enough in it to maybe be of interest to plenty of horror fans.